Shalom, Yasharahla. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, to the 144,000 elect, and to the 1/3 of all men, women, and children of the nation of Yasharahla that are all coming back to these laws, statutes, and commandments in these last days. So today we're just going to speak a little bit on this Roe versus Wade decision, which made it illegal to have an abortion. And this, if Babylon was not divided before, and we know it is, it's even more divided now. And it seems like this division is growing exponentially. I mean, no matter what you talk about, people are going to be divided on those topics, especially as they make their way up to the Supreme Court. And this one has very major implications because there's nothing new under the sun. This has been going on ever since the beginning. And by that, I mean the devil trying to kill the Lord's children. He did it in Egypt. He did it in Greece. He tried to do it in Rome. And he also tried to do it in America. And it's all coming back full circle. Because with every attempt, the skirt gets lifted up on Satan and what he's trying to accomplish. And it eventually backfires on him. So let's get into this video to see how the world is reacting, at least within Babylon, to this decision.
In every corner of the country, emotions spilling into the streets. Anger and fear facing relief, joy, all responding to the end of Roe v. Wade.
The feeling of just total despair.
We have gained protection for the most innocent members of the human family.
Some weekend protests turned violent. In Arizona, officers used tear gas to break up protesters at the state capitol. And in Rhode Island, a police officer running for state senate was arrested after allegedly punching his female opponent during an abortion rights rally. He has since pulled out of the race. At an abortion rights protest in Los Angeles, viral video shows Full House actress Jodie Sweetin pushed to the ground by police officers. The LAPD says it is aware of the video and use of force will be evaluated. Following the court's decision Friday, at least 10 states immediately restricted abortion access, with many banning the procedure altogether, including Alabama, where at the Women's Center in Huntsville, Dalton Johnson had to break the news to women already in the waiting room.
What was it like in that room?
It was just raw emotions. It was everything from people that were upset, angry, people breaking down, crying.
In Arkansas, where abortion was legal up to 20 weeks, doctors now could face up to 10 years in prison for performing the procedure. The only exception, life of the mother. At least 3 more states shut down services, with the law still unclear. But at least 16 states and Washington, D.C. have laws protecting the right to an abortion. Among those states, Illinois, where over the weekend, President Trump took a victory lap on his conservative court appointments at a rally with Republican House member Mary Miller, who made these controversial comments.
I want to thank you for the historic victory for life in the Supreme Court yesterday.
The devil made her say that.
Miller's campaign says she misread her prepared remarks and meant to say right to life. The pivotal Supreme Court case originated with this Mississippi abortion clinic, where this morning women are still attending appointments. State law allows 10 days before it has to shut down. Tyler Hardin runs Planned Parenthood in the state.
You have appointments in these next 10 days, keep those appointments and make those appointments.
And this morning we are getting a new look at just how Americans feel.
It runs so deep that a lot of these people will not realize it until it's too late. Now, abortion was always meant for population control, more so population control over the saints, over the people of God, for 2 reasons. Number one is because these nations understood that there would be a Messiah that would come from people that were in bondage. And number two, like I said before, just population control. Because if you're over a nation of people and they become too big, then your resources get stretched thin, and it's harder, and it becomes harder and harder to keep them in bondage unless you come up with a plan to limit the reproduction of those people. So now you would think that, okay, so the Supreme Court is doing a good thing. So the government is good after all. They're actually making a decision that is actually right according to the Lord. Because aborting your child is murder. They created all these studies to try to figure out when life starts in the womb, and it ranged from the moment of conception all the way up. It evolved all the way up to the moment that the child was born. So they pretty much tried to give women an excuse to feel comfortable about killing their babies. And the number one killer in recent history for Black, Hispanic, and Native American men, women, and children were the Black, Hispanic, and Native American women, because they weren't overtly killing us. They were covertly killing us through abortions. We're talking 300,000 babies a year. And it was all fine and dandy until this study came out in 2016. So this article is called "White Deaths Exceed Births in a Majority of U.S. States." In 2016, more non-Hispanic whites died than were born in 26 states, more than at any time in U.S. history. Some 179 million residents, or roughly 56% of the U.S. population, lived in these 26 states. You see that? In contrast, non-Hispanic white deaths exceeded births in just 4 states in 2004. So between 2004 and 2016, it went from 4 states to 26 states where white deaths are exceeding births. Or in other words, there is a negative birth rate among Edomites. So when it's a problem for Edomites, it becomes a problem for everybody in Babylon. And that's why this whole Roe versus Wade started picking up steam. Because if you're in control of a kingdom and your kingdom is divided on so many subjects, there's only a few ways that you could look after your own people. But you also have division amongst your own people. So the value of every Edomite life becomes that much more valuable, because the people that they want to live are these same people who are out causing harm to other people. The same people who are going to side with oppressive legislation and anything that means that they get to keep and hold on to their kingdom. But those times are changing now, right? And this is nothing new. Here's the second article. Abortion disproportionately targets Black babies. CDC says 74% of abortions in Mississippi were performed on Black mothers. So you see, they put these laws in place to enable you, to empower people to make their own decisions, but it really empowers their own people, because if we're the ones that are doing the abortions, then it's affecting us more than obviously it's affecting other nations. And there's no problem with that. There was never a outcry because of these numbers and percentages here. It wasn't until 2016, when this study came out, that all these things start to move in this direction. And now it is illegal to abort any child. All praises to the Most High. But there's a caveat. But we'll get into that later. let's get some scriptures. This is the book of Exodus chapter 1 and verse 10. This is the book of Exodus chapter 1 and verse 9. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, so get them up out of the land. So pretty much the Egyptians realized this very thing, that the people of God were growing faster than they were. And if there was any fallout, if there were to be any fallout due to any kind of war, the fear was that the children of God would also join the side of the enemy. So they had to rethink about all of their oppressive tactics that they were using, because they couldn't withstand having a war within their own lands, in addition to having a war outside of their land. Let's jump down to verse 16. And he said, when ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him, but if it be a daughter, then she shall live. So the way they started doing it was by having an abortion. They targeted midwives, nannies who were in these Egyptian houses, and they would monitor them to see if they were, sitting on a stool, because they used stools back then to give birth. So if you were always sitting on a stool, the assumption was that you were pregnant. So they were saying, if you see a pregnant Hebrew woman, if she gives birth to a son, then he has to be put to death. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. So abortions were happening as soon as the child was born. There was no way to identify. They wasn't doing ultra scans and sonograms and stuff like that. They had to wait until the child was born. But this is the same tactic that was used in the days of old. The more things change, the more things stay the same. So the act of killing babies goes all the way back to Exodus. Now let's jump to the book of Matthew. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 2 and verse 16. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and in all the coast thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. So Herod was decreeing abortions back in the time of the Romans. Herod, being an Edomite, so-called Caucasian, he understood the very same thing that the Pharaoh of Egypt understood, is that this population had to be controlled, and the best way to control it was to kill young male babies. But in every point in history, no kingdom, no king, no pharaoh was ever able to accomplish this successfully. Why? Because the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai was always with the children of Israel. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 141 and verse 10. Let the wicked fall into their own nets, whilst that I withal escape. So the things that these rulers do as wise counsel, the laws and the decrees that they send forth to harm the children of Israel, always backfires on them. And here's what I mean by that. The abortions were created to target us, but then they realized that their lives were being affected more because of the negative birth rate. So now Supreme Court rules that abortion is illegal, and now all of these places are going to be shut down. And what that means is a lot of blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are going to be giving birth, regardless of Edomites or whoever giving birth, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans will no longer be able to kill their babies. They will have to raise them. They will have to nurture them and care for them, and it will no longer be a business decision anymore. You know, because a lot of these Eves out here today, they make decisions based on what they got going on, and the number one reason why women get abortions is because they cannot afford to take care of the baby. They always try, and you know, the other nations who support abortion, they always talk about, you know, women being sexually abused, which does happen, but the percentages are not as disproportionate as they suggest. It's mainly an economical reason why women are getting abortions. It's not because of it's not mainly because of sexual abuse. So that's a misconception. And even if that was the case, that does not give you the authority to murder. So any way you want to flip the coin, murder is murder. It's against the Lord. With the state of the economy now, with gas prices being through the roof, the inflation, all the things that are going on, the last thing that this kingdom needs is an influx of blacks, Hispanic, and Native American children. Why? Because that generation is going to have a lot more people coming into this truth, a lot more people that are going to be keeping the commandments of the Lord. That's a lot more women that are going to have to go on leave from their jobs, creating these vacancies, which will essentially stretch thin the workforce, and so on and so forth. There are many implications behind an economy that's on its way out, while there's a simultaneous baby boom, of the people that it's oppressing. So this abortion is going to fuel, it is going to accelerate the downfall of Babylon the Great, because there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to be able to work because they're having children. And then the icing on the cake is those children waking up. If it be the Lord's will, they come back to these laws, statutes, and commandments, while the wicked falls into their own nets. But that's all I want to get in for this video. If one person was edified, the job has been done. To the next video, Shalom.